Thank you for being with us, Don.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Welcome to Treasures of Worthington. Talk to us a little bit. Tell us about your background. Start at the beginning for us.
I was born and raised in Nobles County, Ellsworth, Minnesota. Graduated from school there. Went to college for 2 years in the Twin Cities. I got married. How I ended up in Worthington, Minnesota was my wife graduated college and she had practice teach, so she practice taught here. And I worked for Cargill and at the old Cargill elevator, which isn't here anymore. And one of the police officers working there at night, police officer stopped out there and visited back and forth. He just did that several times. And he said there was going to be an opening, but you had to take a civil service test. So I went up on a Saturday and took a civil service test and I passed it. And eventually I got hired, and that's how I started. Started in November of 1966.
In the Worthington
Police Department.
So what did you go to school for? What did you study?
I was at medical technology and x-ray.
That's what my mother went for as well.
And I got to be a law enforcement. Does that fit? No.
Well, you know, career paths take different roads,
yes,
right?
Yes, they do.
So let's talk about being a police officer and what year did you say that was?
1966.
1966. So take me back to Worthington. What was going on in Worthington in 1966?
It was, well, a sleepy little community. Today, weekends are busy because there's a lot of activities going on. Back then, you waited until the dance halls emptied out either in Hatfield or Wilmont or Lismore or Ellsworth, and then people came back and you might have some activity. Otherwise, it was very, very quiet. A lot different in the beginning than what it was, you know, whenever it is today, but
right.
The world is different.
When, do you have any memorable stories about your time in police work?
Well, my second boy was born on October 31st, and we got into a situation that night. I was shot at, ended up arresting the man, but it was, could have been a lot different than what it turned out to be, but yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs. You've had a lot of fun, but there's a lot of very serious and very sad things that have happened, but it's part of the job.
So you started out as an officer. Take me through your career.
I started out as a police officer in the city of Worthington, and can't tell you exactly how long I worked there, but Dale Peters was a police officer when I started. We worked together, and he had just been elected sheriff. And a year or 2 years into him being sheriff, I went to work at the sheriff's office. I worked at the sheriff's office for 8 years following that.
Okay.
And then I went back to the police department. I worked the street, and then I did crime prevention and some investigation. And eventually the chief retired and that position opened up. Another civil service test, me and a lot of people took it, and I passed it and eventually got down to the final three, and then we had to do interviews in front of the city council and in front of the cameras. And I got selected to be the chief of police. I was chief of police for the next 15 years.
And what year was that?
1985.
1985, and then you do the math for me.
October. In October, and I was there 15 years. I retired in 2000.
In 2000, thank you. So obviously police work changed in the time from the time you started to your tenure, when your tenure was over. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, an awful lot of differences. I can remember when I first started, portable radios we didn't have any portable radios. And one of the officers, we used to do door check on foot. He walked around, we had two door checks. First one and the second one, it did. And anyway, he was out doing door check, and it was icy out, fell, broke a leg, and he had a whistle. He kept blowing the whistle, and finally somebody heard him, and ambulance came and took him in. And that was the start of, we got portable radios in so that you were on foot, that you could take a radio, and if something happened, you had. Prior to that, if you were out on the, talk about technology, you were out on the street, even in the daytime. there was 2 lights on downtown that the dispatcher could flip the light on, and then you knew you had to report back to the dispatch because something was going on. If you were downtown on foot, you maybe didn't have a radio.
So you would know by a light
By
that
the
you had to
light
call in.
was on that you had to call in or get down there.
Get down
one
there.
or the other. Yeah. So technology has changed a lot.
I guess.
The first cars that we had when I started were straight stick. Straight stick and go through clutches, and people were not the best at driving a straight stick. No AM FM radio, just a plain radio. Just no radio whatsoever, just the police radio in it. No air conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing. It was just bare bones. And eventually they went to automatic transmissions, and finally it got to be, I think, because of storms and whatever, they went to AM, FM radio so you could listen to it. So you could, not all the static from a electrical storm. In my tenure, when I got to be chief, we went to cameras in the cars, and that was a big step.
Back then, in 1980, in the 80s?
In the early 80s.
Early 80s, really, okay.
We were one of the first departments, maybe the Twin Cities had it, but nobody outstate had it. And we went to cameras in the cars just because of protecting yourself and also building evidence for a drunk driver or whatever, but it was just a situation that was good for everybody, and it protected the people that you were arresting. And
why do you think Worthington was on the cutting edge of that?
well, we were one of the first places when we got it installed in the car. The Minnesota Police and Chiefs Association took a car with a camera and the whole up there, so everybody at the conference could look at it and see what it was. So how many more got them and how soon, I have no idea, but we had them.
Well, that had to change the game a lot.
It changed it, and now, I mean, if you've been in a police car lately, it's like getting in the cockpit of an airplane.
Absolutely.
It's computers and all of a lot of equipment.
What other things, obviously technology changed, well, the community of Worthington changed. Can you talk about that?
Yes. When I started, there were probably a handful of American Indians. There were a few families of African Americans that came and went to work at Armour's that probably transferred here from Kansas City or someplace because they'd closed a plant, Sioux
Right.
City, Kansas City. Other than that, there just wasn't any. There got to be a few Hispanic later on, and then when Vietnam War was going on, and after, there were churches-sponsored Vietnamese families for resettlement here because they were having problems back in their home country. Then after that came Cambodians, Laotians, and then after that, there's just been there are people from countries that you really hardly ever heard of, but
That's true.
they come here to go to work and try to make a better life for themselves. First Wednesday of the month.
Oh, that's what it is.
You've got to be an old cop to know this stuff.
For those of you that can't hear, the sirens are going off on the first Wednesday of the month. And Don said he knows because he was in law enforcement. And I should know that too. I've lived here long enough. So with that change in population, language barriers, other things come up. What was that like, making that transition?
It was brand new to everybody. I mean, there was no place that you could really get any help to translating things into other languages to get it so it was correct.
Right.
Was very difficult. We invested in AT&T language line. We spent a lot of money with AT&T language line the first years until it was a big learning curve.
Sure.
And it wasn't all smooth for anybody, for law enforcement, for courts, for family services, anybody that was, because these people were here and you were dealing with them. But we made strides. It took time, but I think we kept working at it, and probably not perfect yet today, but it's it's an ongoing thing.
It's crazy to think that, all the changes that you did go through, some things, language barriers, some things culturally, you could, even if you understand someone's language, you might not always understand their culture. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I remember some of the first Vietnamese people that we dealt with, and you went there, it might be something to do with one of their children, but the first person you addressed in the house was the oldest male or the oldest female. Otherwise, you insulted them, you weren't going to get anything done.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of different things like that you learned, and I can't remember them all, but there's just a lot of different old country cultural things that you had to deal with.
What do you think, in addition to that, that's an ongoing thing,
Yes.
don't you think, in any community, and Worthington is certainly unique. What other things do you think, looking back at your time here in Worthington, that the police maybe in general, police work in general is facing that you might not have had to think about?
Well, I think today, I think that there was a time when the racial equality and I think was a lot better, and now I think it's gotten just really out of hand again, and I don't know who or what it's going to take to get this back in line again, but it's that to me is a big issue. It's all part of the learning curve. When the second shift came here at JBS was a big problem for us because it brought so many people here that there are people that came to work, but the baggage that they brought with them, the people that came. I mean, we had, if you look back in reports, we had drive-by shootings, we had a lot of different issues, and it all stemmed back to gang issues from other cities, places. People came here because they were in trouble in California or some other area, and they thought they were going to take up residence here. And I will have to say all of law enforcement, the guys that worked for me, or the people, shouldn't say guys because there were ladies too, sheriff's office and state patrol, DNR, we all worked very hard together, and we worked really hard. I mean, if you were a troublemaker or there was issues, we tried to deal with it and move them out of here and down the road to whether it be a state facility or just out of here or whatever. But that was a very trying time for me.
What year was that?
Oh, that'd probably been in the middle 80s, I'd say 88, 9, and there's someplace, I don't know what year.
Right.
But I will have to say that the people that stayed were people that wanted to work, wanted to make a better life for themselves, they're just, but we had some growing pains there for a while.
Yeah, I was kind of in on, maybe the tail end of that when I came here too. I recall some of that, and it has changed.
Oh yeah, it's changed, and it's just, but it's all part of just what's going on now with law enforcement. I have a son and a grandson who are in law enforcement.
Oh, you do? Okay.
And I just tell them, I said, in the 60s, 68, 69, the Vietnam War protest and the issues with that, nothing like it is today. But
Right.
I said, they hated anybody that came back from military, they got spit on and were killers and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And then law enforcement was looked at in a dim, we were the Gestapo and whatever. But that changed, and I said, this will change too. You've got some growing periods to go through, but it will change.
Things are cyclical, aren't they?
Yes.
Talk about your life in, maybe outside of your work, younger married years and things like that here in Worthington, your family.
You worked a lot. It's not like today, the time off that people get. Like I said, my second boy was born in the morning on October 31st, and I was working that night. So, I mean, that just
and
tells
not
you.
having a very good night that
Well, no,
night.
apparently it turned out all right, but it's just, that way. But we had a softball team, law enforcement softball team. We had a lot of fun with that. There was a lot of different things that you did. I did a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting. You got away and time to spend, and you did things, as a family, but
Talk about your family that you grew up, your parents and growing up in Ellsworth.
my mom and dad were farmers, and I grew up on a farm, and I had 3 sisters, and that's my mom and dad lived there basically till they died, or short period that they weren't there, but that was their life. And small town, and everybody knew everybody, and but it was good.
Right, kind of the Mayberry thing.
It
right?
is, yes.
So, what year did you? You said your wife was doing her student teaching here. What year was that, and what year did you get married? And talk about the family that you had.
I think
in your life.
No. See, you're testing me for dates.
Oh, okay, well, roughly.
I think 1965 she came here.
Okay.
We came here, and we had just gotten married.
Okay. And so you said you had a son in law enforcement?
I have a son. My oldest boy, when he went in the Navy, he was in the Navy for 14 years. He was a nuclear reactor operator on a submarine, and he got out because the choices for bases and all of it had really shrunk. And then he went to Palo, Iowa, which was Cedar Rapids, and then he worked at a nuclear power plant there until he retired.
Okay.
And he's still down there. And my second boy went to school to be a police officer, and he worked at Oakdale, Minnesota, which is a Twin City suburb,
Right.
for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know. Then he went to St. Paul, and he's still in St. Paul. In fact, the 13th of March, I was there, and he just got promoted to senior commander.
Wonderful.
So, and he started out, in the bottom, and anyway. And then my grandson is a police officer in Cottage Grove. And I got a daughter who she lives in the Twin Cities, and she is an HR director for doctors or medical facility.
So when you were bringing up your kids, and obviously a different time, what did you try to instill into them about life, or about the things that you had learned, how to navigate?
As a police officer, it's either right or it's wrong. There's no gray area.
Right.
We're not attorneys. But that you tried to instill and my kids were no different than anybody else's. They got into their share of trouble, but they suffered the consequences for it. And that's just kind of the way everybody, I think, was brought up pretty much. Now it's a little bit different. I think I have a hard time being a parent now and having a 8, 10-year-old say they only needed a cell phone. I think I'd have a real hard time with that. But I know people that have them, and the parental things that they can put on them. I mean, it's probably all right, but technology has passed me by. So I just don't know that I would be able to do all of that.
Right. Yeah, it is a whole different ballgame, that is for sure. Well, I've got a few pictures here. I want you had talked about being with the Sheriff's Department for
Yes, I did. 8 years.
8 years.
Did that. Yep.
Okay, tell me about this.
Oh boy.
Who's your friend there?
I don't remember what that was even about.
I was wondering if someone had hit that deer.
I don't remember what that was even about.
Interesting. Tell me about the time right there. Is that in the office there?
That's in the old, long gone now, tore down, but yeah, in the sheriff's office. I don't remember what that was about though.
So as far as working, what's the difference between working in the Sheriff's Department, working for the county, and working for the city of Worthington?
On the sheriff's office, you were, a lot of times you're out by yourself.
Right.
And a lot bigger area to cover. Where in the city, you get in trouble someplace, there's somebody there to back you up. Where out in the county,
not too often.
You were, somebody might come to back you up. It might be 10, 15 minutes or more before they get there.
Yeah.
But same thing. I mean, you're doing the same thing, and you might have juvenile issues in Worthington, but you'd have the same juvenile issues in some other town in the county. And I mean, it's all the same kind of work, basically. You did paper service, civil paper service, and things like that that the city you didn't do, but otherwise it was pretty much.
Do you have a preference?
Oh, they both have their things. I can't say that one's any better than the other. No.
But like enjoyed your time in both?
Yes, I did. It was a good learning process. I mean, I think
sure.
you get a more broad view of things, and it was good that if when I was in the city, if they came up with something out in the county somewhere, I mean, you knew exactly where it was at, and where some officers that came here wouldn't have had an idea as to exactly where it was in the county. So it was a good thing.
I think there's this is it Kurt Skellhouse, and I have no idea what you might be doing here.
It looks like we're getting evidence from something.
That's what I thought too.
But I don't know what it was from. But yeah, it looks like we're bagging up evidence. The way it looks like.
When you did that kind of thing, do you have a memorable case or?
Oh, there's memorable things that happened. But
Nothing that comes to mind?
no, not really. It's just, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you were, get involved in that at the time were very important, but as time goes on, it gets to be less important.
Sure. And some fairly awful things I'm sure you saw.
Oh yes, I to this day, when there's certain places that I go by, either in the city and in the county, that, I mean, I can, just like it was yesterday. Most of them have to do with little kids, some tragedy with a little kid. And that, to me, that was one of the hardest things to deal with. Adults is one thing, but little kids is a whole different ballgame.
Agreed. And I can't imagine that, sometimes when they talk about police work and the things that you see are hard and make for hard work.
And I think if you can put it in the back of your mind, you'll survive at it. If you can't, I think that you have to get out of it, because I think it drive you crazy.
Right. You managed to be able to do that?
I did. It wasn't not everything right away, but you put life in perspective, and you kind of, you had to move on.
Right. Were you part of the fire department, or is this?
24 years.
Oh, well, talk about that.
Well, that's me. I'm the old. That's an old Laverne pumper. It's 1930s version. I think 37. I think it is the year. Made in Laverne, Minnesota, and Bill Smith, who was on the fire. Bill Smith and I could pump it. There weren't too many of them that were on there could even pump the old thing, but it was quite an old machine. But I spent 24 years on there. You talk about fires. Bass apartment fire was probably the worst conditions that I've ever been in. It was raging blizzard, and it started in an apartment building next door to it. Probably winds like today are better, and then snow and colder than blazes.
And where was this at?
Down where United Prairie Bank is at.
Oh, sure.
That area down there, that burned that whole thing out of there, and that was probably the worst conditions of a fire that I can remember. We were in that, all night and into the morning. You get, the overspray had come on you, just freeze down. You had ice, 2 inches thick on you. Lampert Lumber came down, the manager of Lampert Lumber came down, opened it up for us so you could go in there and warm up. And before you went in there, they had a spanner wrench, which was used to tighten the hoses onto the truck or together. And they'd take a spanner wrench and they were hitting you with it to knock the ice off because it was so thick.
Oh my goodness.
The weight was just unbelievable what you had on you from that. So it was
in the dead of winter, was it?
Dead of winter, cold, and just, like I said, a raging blizzard.
Oh my goodness.
And at that time, we stayed at the fire hall. Three guys stayed at the fire hall every night, from 10 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And since the weather was so bad, we put 6 guys in there. 6 guys stayed. So, and then we got called out on that. And Chip Peters and I were the first 2 into the place that was on fire. I mean, it was on fire, but it got out through the roof. We couldn't get it knocked down, and it got over to the next apartment building. Was this far away from it, But like wind like today, what it'd be like to try to stop anything. And probably worse than what it is today. Yeah, but it was bad.
Oh my gosh.
So that was bad. I can remember we had a fire on West Shore Drive, a house fire, it was an attic in the morning. We had another fire at night at a place over on 14th. We just got done with that and getting stuff put away, and I was staying at the fire hall, and we got everything put away and went to bed, and the fire alarm went off, and the building, which was no longer there, Crippled Children's School, we had a fire in that. And
All in one day?
all in one night, and we were up, I mean, it was, and that was another all-nighter, you know, all day, and
Was it a full moon or what was
I don't
going on?
know about that, but it was, so yeah, we had a lot of fun too with the fire department, a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Well, you worked in 2 brotherhoods then.
Oh yeah, it did.
So
It's
talk
like
about the people that you, probably lifelong friends that you have through, you know, your time at the fire
there's a lot of people
department
that
and the police
worked for fire
department.
Yeah, we did things together, and we'd have a fireman's picnic and whatever, and everybody get together and their families and, you know, that kind of thing. And then, well, it started out, it was in January, and that was one of the start. We'd have all the retired firemen that were still around, and we had a fireman's feed banquet. They would have steak or prime rib or, you know, whatever that they chose that they were going to have, and everybody get together, and wives and one day, colder than cold, everybody's dressed up to go to a fire call. We go out to a construction company that had caterpillars and equipment stuff in the shed, and big fire, and we're out there. I mean, it was miserable. And we come back in from that, and everybody was about half froze, you know. But yeah, it's all part of it.
Yep, good times.
Yeah.
This looks like it's, well, it gives an explanation there. I don't have my glasses on, but it looks like you're with the fire chief, possibly. You're the chief of police there?
Yeah, that's when I was, yep. So you can see the radio sticking to my pocket. Yeah, we had a fire somewhere. I don't know where it was at, but yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of pictures around me of someplace, but yeah, you went to all those things, you know. We went, someone, I shouldn't say I, but someone, if a medical emergency call, you know, a car or 2 cars, depending on how busy you were, what was going on, went. And so you did a lot of CPR and a lot of those kind of things. And you were in a lot of people's houses, and you can remember a lot of different things that transpired over the years.
I'm sure when you come back, you're living in Alexandria now. When you come back here, it's like a lot of memories
Oh
flooding.
yeah, a lot of places that you've been and things that you've done, people you see, and you know, some was very successful and some weren't. And
Talk to me about your life now. What do you enjoy doing?
oh, I do a little walking. When weather gets nice, going to do a little biking, travel. Done a lot of traveling in the last couple of years, and enjoy that. Go places I haven't been, and just kind of enjoying life while I can.
What would you say that you've learned that's been your biggest lesson in life in general, that you have taken and learned from and try to live?
Well, I think one thing is when you meet someone or you get into something, don't make a judgment call on the person, on the situation or whatever, because sometimes things can change a lot. And I think that's probably one of the big things for me is you got to have all the cards on the table before you make a decision as to, you know, as to what's what. But, you know, and with people the same way, you know. And you deal with people sometimes when they're probably at their worst, you know, the lowest point in their life or their situation, and so it can, you know, next time you see them, it might be totally different.
Well, thank you so much, Don, for sitting down with us. Did we miss anything that you wanted to talk about?
No, not really, I don't think. I don't know what it would be.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us and talking to us about your life and time here in Worthington, and welcome back for whatever short time it is here.
Yeah, now
back up north.
I go from here, and now I got to go do my income tax, and that's going to be the worst part of the day. And I was to the dentist early this morning, so what's that tell you?